It's very possible that the marriage of the biggest pop star in the world was actually a master hunting plan carried out over an entire decade. A 7-part TikTok documentary has just reopened a wound Hollywood thought was long buried. Hailey Baldwin's obsessive fixation on Justin Bieber. Is this really a love story, or the most successful stalking case in modern celebrity history? Did Hailey's father, Stephen Baldwin, innocently introduce them, or did he see a business opportunity from the very beginning? Was the so-called Jenner strategy actually real? Were they truly friends? Or did Hailey use Kendall and Kylie Jenner to stay permanently on Justin's radar, even while he was still with Selena? Hailey has even been accused of carrying out a total infiltration. The darkest point comes when she begins connecting with Selena's closest friends, Raquel Stevens and Ashley Cook, in what many describe as an almost obsessive decision. Was this really just love? Or are we talking about a stolen identity? Did Hailey fall in love with Justin? Or did she want to become Selena, copying everything from her style to her mannerisms? Today, Justin Bieber seems more erratic than ever, and many people are asking the same question. Did he marry his biggest fan or his worst nightmare? This is Behind the Icon, and this is the turbulent story of Selena Gomez, Hailey Baldwin, and Justin Bieber, a love triangle that never truly closed. None of this starts with a relationship. It starts with one specific moment: a video, a hallway, an encounter, an introduction. The year is 2009. Hailey Baldwin was still a teenager. Justin Bieber was just beginning to turn into a global phenomenon. And standing between them was Stephen Baldwin, Hailey's father. There's a handshake. Awkward. Forced. At first glance, it looks completely insignificant. There's no chemistry. No real conversation. Nothing that makes you think this moment would matter years later. But over time, people started looking at it very differently. Because it wasn't a random encounter. It was an introduction. And the question almost asks itself, was it really spontaneous? Or was it the beginning of something much more calculated? Was it simply a father introducing his daughter? Or someone recognizing an opportunity to get close to a world that was already exploding in popularity? Because this wasn't just any artist. This was Justin Bieber. And at that moment, everyone wanted to be close to that raw diamond before the rest of the world fully understood what he was becoming. And there's another detail that makes the whole thing even more interesting. Because while Hailey entered the story that way, there was another introduction happening at almost the same time. Very different. Justin on a stage. Selena Gomez presenting him with an award. And this time, everything felt much more natural. Much more direct.
Selena, nice to meet you. I'm Justin. You're very beautiful. Maybe we can go out sometime. Okay. I want to say thank you so much.
No intermediaries. No visible strategy. No setup. Just two teenagers meeting in front of the world. Two completely different ways of entering the exact same story. One, open and spontaneous. The other, much quieter. And over time, that difference would start to matter. Because some stories begin honestly, out in the open, and others begin much earlier, and much more carefully, long before anyone notices what's really happening. After that first encounter, nothing happened right away. There was no relationship, no story, no headlines, but there was something more subtle: presence. Because while Justin and Selena's relationship started growing, another movement quietly began happening in the background. Nothing obvious, nothing direct, but definitely consistent. Hailey didn't try to enter Justin's life head-on. Instead, she changed the approach. And if she couldn't get close through the center, then maybe the way in was through the sides. And that's where two key names enter the story: Kendall and Kylie Jenner. At the time, they were part of the right social circle: private events, exclusive trips, rooms that not everyone could access. And suddenly, Hailey starts appearing there too. Photos, event backstage footage, late night outings, private jets. Always the same group, always with Hailey somewhere inside it. Never as the main character, but never as an outsider either. And that changes the entire dynamic, because now it's no longer about randomly crossing paths with Justin Bieber. It's about being present in every environment where Justin already was. While Justin and Selena were living through their constant breakups and reconciliations, Hailey remained in orbit. She didn't disappear during the pauses. She didn't disappear during the conflicts. She was simply always there. And that's when a pattern starts becoming visible. The same hotels, the same events, the same private parties, the same names keep appearing. The same locations keep matching up. And one thing starts drawing attention more than anything else, the frequency, because it doesn't happen once or twice. It keeps happening. And after a while, that stops feeling accidental. But the most important part isn't just the repetition, it's the method. There's no confrontation, no public exposure, no obvious attempt to replace Selena, at least not yet. Instead, what starts taking shape is something quieter and much more strategic. Construction, relationships, trust, gradual closeness. Because being inside the same group isn't the same thing as being emotionally close, but it is the first step. And while all of this was happening in the background, the main story kept moving forward. Justin and Selena continued their cycle of highs and lows, breakups and reconciliations. A relationship that never fully stabilized. And that context matters. Because when a relationship becomes unstable, space starts opening up. Space for third parties. Space for new dynamics. Space for someone who was already quietly standing nearby. And suddenly, everything starts looking different. Because now it's no longer just presence. It's positioning. Close to the circle, close to the environment, close to the moments that mattered, without forcing anything, without suddenly appearing out of nowhere. Just always being there. And that's what makes this second chapter much harder to ignore. Because if the first step was that awkward introduction caught on video, the second step was positioning. And from that point on, the story stops looking like coincidence and starts looking like a sequence. But there's a moment in this story where everything stops feeling vague and starts becoming much more specific. Because up to this point, what we've been seeing is proximity, shared events, people moving within the same social circles. But now, the dynamic changes. At this point, it's no longer just about Justin. It becomes about Selena, and more specifically, about the people closest to her. For years, Selena Gomez kept a very small and trusted inner circle around her. Friends who weren't part of the celebrity machine, but part of her real everyday life. And two names appear constantly inside that circle: Raquel Stevens, Ashley Cook. They weren't major public figures. They didn't chase attention or headlines, but they were always there. Trips, birthdays, private events, personal moments away from cameras. In many ways, they represented Selena's closest support system. And that's where something starts happening that, over time, begins attracting attention. Because those same people slowly start appearing around Hailey too. Shared photos, events where they suddenly overlap, social media interactions that hadn't existed before, and what makes it interesting is that it doesn't happen all at once. There's no dramatic moment, no explosion. It happens gradually, and that's exactly what makes it harder to ignore. At the same time, Justin and Selena's relationship continued following the same familiar cycle. Breakups, reunions, emotional ups and downs that never fully seemed to end. An unstable relationship, but still an active one. And inside that instability, a new dynamic quietly starts forming. Because now Hailey isn't just close to Justin anymore. She's getting closer to the people who are part of Selena's daily life. And that changes the entire position. Because there's a huge difference between randomly seeing someone at events and slowly becoming connected to Selena's inner circle. Not Justin's, hers. The people she traveled with, the people she spent private time with, the people around her when cameras weren't present. Hailey starts sharing spaces with Selena's closest friends. And then another key factor enters the picture: social media, interactions between Hailey and Selena's inner circle. Likes, comments, mutual follows. Nothing is explicit, but everything is visible. And in a story already being watched by millions of people online, every small detail starts getting interpreted. Connections begin forming. The same names keep appearing over and over again. Raquel, Ashley, Hailey, and what once looked like isolated moments starts looking more like a pattern. By the end of 2017, Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez start getting close again, and suddenly the images are everywhere. Bike rides through Los Angeles, casual outings together, moments that seem to show something more stable than what they'd had in the past. For weeks, the narrative felt very clear. They were together again, trying one more time, and this time, for a lot of people, it actually seemed different. But then, in March of 2018, something breaks again. They separate. There's no dramatic announcement, no definitive public statement. The relationship simply stops. And what happens next is what changes the entire story. Because only a few months later, in June of 2018, Justin starts being seen again. But this time with Hailey. Not in group settings anymore. Not as part of the same extended social circle. Now they're together. In New York. On public outings. In situations where there's no longer any real doubt about the relationship. And then comes the moment that explodes everything. July 2018. The Bahamas. Justin Bieber proposes to Hailey Baldwin. And fittingly for that era, the announcement comes through an Instagram post seen around the world. What makes it so shocking is the timing. And only a few months before that, Justin had still been with Selena. There's no visible transition, no gradual evolution. Everything happens suddenly, abruptly. One moment, there's still a relationship with Selena that feels emotionally unfinished. And the next, there's a marriage proposal to Hailey. And that's the moment when this story stops being just personal drama and becomes a global conversation. Because for some people, the explanation is simple. Two people reconnected, fell in love, and decided to move forward. But for others, the timeline never fully made sense. It felt too fast, too direct, too definitive. And then, in September of 2018, Justin and Hailey officially get married in a civil ceremony in New York. A year later comes the formal wedding ceremony, and by then, they've already become one of the most talked about couples in pop culture. Meanwhile, on the other side of the story, Selena begins closing that chapter for good, and she does it the way she knows best, through music. She releases songs that many people interpret as direct reflections of her relationship with Justin, and during one performance, she visibly breaks down crying while singing. The message feels impossible to miss. It was a deep love, but one that simply couldn't survive. And that ending with Selena becomes a major emotional turning point, not just romantically, but psychologically. Because while one story was ending through heartbreak, the other one was accelerating forward without hesitation. And right in the middle of all of it is Justin, caught between a past that still seemed emotionally unresolved and a completely new life that had already begun.
That's funny.
And it's inside that contrast that people start reinterpreting everything that came before. Because when the timeline doesn't quite fit together, people stop focusing only on the present. They start looking backward. And as time went on, the story never really disappeared. It simply changed form. At this point, it was no longer just about what had happened between the three of them, but about the way millions of people online started interpreting every small detail connected to the story. And that's when one of the most uncomfortable theories surrounding this entire situation really began to grow. The constant comparison between Hailey and Selena. People started noticing similarities everywhere. Outfits that looked strangely familiar, hairstyles that reminded them of specific Selena eras, makeup choices, poses, even entire aesthetics that for many people stopped feeling accidental. Some of those comparisons quickly went viral, especially when fans placed photos side by side and pointed out how often the similarities seemed to repeat themselves over time. And that's what started creating real noise online. Because inspiration is one thing, especially in celebrity culture, where trends constantly overlap and everyone influences each other. But for a lot of people, this started feeling different. The similarities began to look too frequent, too specific, too deliberate. And then attention shifted towards smaller details. The way Hailey spoke in interviews, certain gestures in front of cameras, specific attitudes during public appearances.
The first record I ever bought, and she was the first concert I ever went to.
I love Britney Spears. She was the first concert I ever went to.
Somebody asked me a while ago, what's the one thing you wish people knew about you? And I said I wanted it to be my heart.
I wish people just knew my heart, and I wish people just knew me.
Like, I don't have to be that 19-year-old body shape anymore because I'm not.
I'm not 19 anymore. I'm 24 now. I feel like
Individually, none of these things proved anything, but together they slowly started building a perception. And in a story already being watched this closely, perception was enough to fuel an entire narrative. Because the internet does what it always does. It compares people endlessly. And once those comparisons begin, people start constructing their own version of the truth. For some, all of this was completely normal. Two women moving within the same world, surrounded by the same trends and cultural influences, naturally developing similar styles over time. But for others, the interpretation became much darker. They didn't see coincidence, they saw imitation. And that's where the strongest idea of all begins to appear. That maybe this was never only about being with Justin, maybe it was also about occupying a place that for many people already belonged to Selena Gomez. From that moment on, the story stopped being just a complicated relationship between three celebrities. It became a public phenomenon with two completely divided sides. On one side were the people who believed this was simply a love story that unfolded naturally over time. On the other were those who believed there was something far more calculated underneath it all. Something that started looking less like romance and more like a carefully constructed pursuit. And one question that still remains open: was this simply a love story, or a sequence of decisions that slowly led to this exact outcome? Because in stories like this, the truth isn't always about what actually happened. A lot of the time, it becomes about what people choose to believe. This was Behind the Icon. And this was the story of the Justin, Selena, and Hailey triangle. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, subscribe to the channel and let us know what story you'd like us to explore next. Because behind every public figure, there's always something more. And there's always another story worth telling.